honestly, you guys, I'm covering like this much of Java, all right? I'm covering only the basics you need to know in order to get your job, right? So think of it this way. Java, WebDriver, what we learned today. Like, so definitely I encourage you to go out on your own and take some Java tutorials and just learn some basics. It's good to understand the concepts. I've kind of explained them to you in like 30 minutes or less. But yeah, if you really want to work in this industry and you're going to go into code, then definitely go and code. What you're going to get from this class is not enough to become a coder. It's enough to get the concepts, but if you want to become a coder, go and challenge yourself outside of this class. So here's how it works. If you do your homework, you learn. If you want to get a job, you have to do homework plus some extra credit on the side. If you really, really want to hit it out of the ballpark, you have to go out and come up with your own homework and do your own homework. And then if you want to, if you get stuck, you can email me your solutions and say, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the URL I'm trying to do it against, and I'll try to help you do it, all right? That comes with a disclaimer. I can tell pretty easily if it's an interview question. I will not do your interviews for you. All right, so if you're actually trying to learn the concept and you're stuck, send me your stuff. Okay, again, please, send me your Java file. Okay, don't send me like a screenshot of your stuff. Send me your Java file, all right? I can run it and figure out what the error is, all right? I don't need to see the error. Just say, I'm getting an error, here's my Java file, all right? If you really, really want to be nice to me, copy your entire contents of your Java file into an email and also attach the Java file. Why? Do you know why? Why? Because I can't open Java files on my phone. And if you want a response really, really fast, and if it's something simple that I can see with my eyes without compiling, I'll be able to see in the email your code, and I'll read it, and I'll basically give you an answer. If it's something non-trivial, I have to get home, I have to open the Java file, put it into a project, run it, and figure it out. All right? So if I can't open your Java file, you have to wait for me to get home and do all that stuff. If I can see what the text is inside your Java file by you being nice and copying into the text and attaching it, then you get a response from me much faster. I really, really, really try to get back to you in 24 hours. I do slack off sometimes because life. So if you don't hear from me in 24 hours, feel free to email me again. And you can keep doing that until you get back from me. Usually after the second email, I feel so guilty that I'll like respond immediately. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay, so did everybody get their stuff to run? Did everybody see what happens if you comment out the failure and run it again? So here, I'll show you. If you comment out the failure and run it again, you get the green bar. Surprise! There's some other information you might want to notice. It also tells you how long the test took to execute. In this case, it took 1/1000th of a second to execute. That's because it didn't do anything. All right. So essentially, this is kind of the most basic unit test, all right? But we're not going to be writing unit tests. We're not developers. We're going to be writing UI tests, also known by some as integration tests, even though that's not the correct terminology, but it's fine. Also known by some as regression testing, all those things, right? But we're going to be creating a UI test inside here. Does that make sense? So it's going to take much longer than 1/1000th of a second. All right, so let's use our logic. There's not a lot we know about WebDriver right now, right? There's not a lot. But what do you think some things we need in order to do some UI testing? What are some things do you think we'll need? We need something to test, application under test, right? So you need to know a URL we're going to be using, right? What else do we need?
Requirements. Requirements.
Well, no, we're thinking just for today, for right now, like for this test case right now. What are some things we need? We need a browser, right? And what else? And then we actually need our code, the WebDriver that's going to be running it. So 3 things. That's how you remember what to do, all right? So first things first, I'm going to give you the URL for the stuff we're going to be testing, all right? It's pretty easy to remember. It's essentially the same thing as here, except it's hrm.seleniumminutes.com, right? That's our application under test, AUT, right? Might as well throw some acronyms at you while we're at it. All right. Second, we're going to need a browser. In this class, we're going to be using Firefox or Chrome. But today, we're going to use Firefox. Why? I wasn't able to get Chrome to work on my computer, and I feel I can. You get to use Firefox with me. All right? So probably next week, I'll try to show you Chrome as well. But for now, you need to have Firefox. So if you do not have Firefox installed on your laptop, please install it right now. You will need it in order to run the tests. Okay? It's pretty easy to install Firefox. So just do it really, really quick. But you need a specific version of Firefox. And that means that most of you might have to install Firefox even if you have one. Because as I found out today, the new version of Firefox 53 does not work with the Webdriver executable. Well, it's actually GeckoDriver executable, but so Webdriver uses GeckoDriver, just bear with me. Webdriver uses GeckoDriver executable to control Firefox. That makes sense? So Firefox by itself, it doesn't know what to do. So GeckoDriver is what controls it. WebDriver is what talks to GeckoDriver. Unfortunately, GeckoDriver and the new version of Firefox 53 have an issue. They cannot send keys. What does that mean, send keys? They cannot type things into fields. It's a bug, right? So until they fix that bug, which will be fixed in the next version of GeckoDriver, which will come out at some point, we will use version 52 of the browser. So if you have version 52 of the browser, awesome for you. Don't upgrade. If you don't, you will need to downgrade or upgrade to 52. How to do this? We will go to the following URL. I can speak, you guys, I promise. I believe it's this guy? No! Okay, fine, I have to find it, sorry. 52, where are you? This one. All right. Everybody sees that? So it's essentially Mozilla public Firefox releases. And then if you remember that much, you can scroll through the list and find 52. There's 52, there's 52.0 beta, 52.01, 52.01 beta. This is the most kind of advanced 52, I guess, up-to-date 52. Okay, so you go here, you pick your let me see this. You pick your operating system, yes. And then inside your operating system, you pick a language, all right? Make sense? So for me, I picked English US. If you want to pick some other language for your Firefox, go ahead. But I picked English US. And then I just clicked on it, downloaded it, and installed it. So far, so good?
If I have that version only, then I don't need to.
Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Don't upgrade, don't downgrade, don't touch it. Don't breathe on it. By the way, most of you who are not in automation probably have a setting in your Firefox to auto-upgrade, right? It's not your friend. It is not your friend. It will hurt you. It's your enemy. You just don't know it yet. All right, because what happens is you'll open up your laptop one day and everything worked yesterday, and all of a sudden nothing works, and you will spend hours trying to figure out what happened, only to realize later that's because Firefox auto-upgraded while you weren't looking. And that's why nothing works. So the best option is to set it to check for upgrades, but ask you to upgrade. Why? Well, the situation we're actually observing right now, where the new version that came out is not compatible with the driver, right, is the reason. So usually what happens is Firefox is kind of on its own, hanging out, right? And they put out new releases, and then GeckoDriver has to scramble, right, to update to fit their new release, right? So they don't do it together. basically this comes out and the Gecko driver says, oh my gosh, so many new features. I have to catch up, right? So there's a little bit of time between the new version of browser and the new version of the driver. And so you don't want to auto upgrade. You want to manually upgrade after you Google if there are issues. Like right now, there's issues. So I can't upgrade. Okay? So again, please, if you have a Firefox that is a version 53, you need to downgrade it. So uninstall it, or you don't have to uninstall it. Download this one and just install it on top, right? So just.
If I have an older version, would that be okay, like 45? Or should I have it updated? I might probably update after
I do not know if Selenium 3 works with 45.
No.
I think it works with
47
only
and above.
48 and after.
47 and above, I think.
47 and above? Or 48 and above? Something like that. So I honestly don't know if it will work.
So it could also be that that the issue is with Gecko driver. There's something with Gecko driver is not working with Firefox.
No, that's specifically it. Yes. Gecko driver is the issue.
Both ways, right? Something with Firefox, not with Gecko, or Gecko with Firefox.
It's always going to be the Gecko's fault.
Who is it?
Because Gecko is the one that's supposed to fit Firefox. Firefox doesn't know anything about Gecko and doesn't care. So they're not trying to fit Gecko. Okay, you guys, if you're one of those folks who has an option to auto upgrade, please go to your Firefox preferences or your Firefox settings, however you want to do it. You can go through, on the Windows it's tools, and then you guys have settings here. On the Mac it's Firefox preferences. And then you want to go to advanced and click on the update tab. All right? And okay, I have it set to here, but don't do what I do. Do what I say. Don't do what I do. You want to select this guy. All right? I'm a weird hybrid. I actually have multiple browsers, multiple versions of Firefox installed on my system. That's why I have it here. Because I actually have a 53rd version that I'm going to upgrade as soon as it upgrades. But if you have only one version, make sure you choose this guy. Okay? Everybody heard why? Everybody understands why?
So we can deny it?
Huh?
So we can deny it?
So it at least asks you, so you're not surprised. Because if it surprises you, then you're just... Trust me, it's painful. It's very painful. Okay, so let's go through this again. We know the URL we're testing, right? We have the correct browser. What else do we need? What's number 3? We need the WebDriver. Do we have the WebDriver? We don't have the WebDriver. So we need to download the WebDriver. So let's do that. If you go to seleniumhq.org/download, you will see Selenium standalone server. All right? Now, standalone server actually has client and server inside. So it's kind of a bad name. It's not just the server. It's server plus a whole bunch of other things inside there, like even including JUnit and some other drivers like Marionette and all that stuff. But what we need is this guy. All right? So we basically click on this link and download. All right? Now, I'm not going to download because I did that before I came to class. But you guys, you just click on this link over here. Again, one more time. Click on this link, right? This one right here. And download it. What you're going to get downloaded is a .jar file. What's a jar?
It's a jar? Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, it's a Java archive. All right? So what's an archive?
Set of libraries.
It's like where the I don't know, files get.
It's like a zip. Yeah?
Like Excel.
It's like a zip. It's just a different extension. It's basically a compressed version, right, of your stuff. Compressed. So you probably, like on the Mac, you might have heard of TARs or RARs, right? JAR is just another R. Yeah, download it. It's quick. It's not that big. Download it, and then after you download it, you get to drag it into your project. All right, drag it into your project. So here's what you're gonna do. Download it. So I'll show you where mine is. Mine is, or it was, here. See? There it is. Da-da-da! And then what I'm gonna do is inside my Eclipse. By the way, somebody told me they weren't able to see the folders. Who was it? Let's say that my 2-year-old was playing with my Eclipse. All right. What do I do now? All right. Not a big deal. You're gonna go to Window, and then you have Show Perspective, right? And then if you go to Other, you have all these perspectives, all right? So you can just select Java, Default, and OK, all right? And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna say Window, Reset Perspective, all right? And everything is back. All right? Now let's say that I actually didn't want everything back. I don't want this guy, and I don't want this guy, and maybe I don't want this guy or this guy, right? But I really, really, really do want that guy, the one that was on the left. I want that Package Explorer, right? So I don't want to reset the whole perspective. I just want that one thing back. Not a big deal. Window, Show View, Package Explorer. All of your associated views are here. All right? So if something disappears, Window, Show View. Delio?
I have a question. I don't know if it is outside the class.
At least for math,
But generally, like I have heard that you just do that, that language binding straight download from Selenium website, and you are told to use server. So you might get it.
Yes, I'll explain to you in a second. Question in the back was somebody?
yeah, so you just drag the file to your login class.
Yes, let me show and then I'll answer your question while everyone's doing it. So, here's my project, right? I'm going to take my jar, here it is, and I'm going to drag it until I see a plus sign. I don't want to put it inside source. I don't want it in source. I want it in my project, all right? Ta-da! And I'm going to say copy. Coolio?
Yeah, got it.
Now, I'm a neat freak. I like to have things all in their own little folders. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a little folder and then put that in the folder. But if you're okay with it just floating around, then let it float around. It's not a big deal. Okay? All right, answer to your question. You were looking at the older video and you saw that there was a client-server situation going on, right?
There is this, even on the website, you know, there is this language client bindings, and we use Java ones. So that
Okay.
is the question.
So, nice question. Probably good to know.
Yeah, see, this
The question is, what is this for? Right? So technically, remember how I told you that jar file contains a client as well? The reason I said it was because WebDriver is a client-server setup. What does that mean? It means that there is code that communicates to core, and then core is actually the one that communicates to your Gecko driver, and then Gecko driver is actually the one that communicates to your browser. Lost? Okay. Before okay, I know this is being recorded and I'm totally afraid of lying. So, disclaimer to the camera! I have no idea what I'm talking about. But, in theory, this is how it works. There is a proxy situation that happens. What is a proxy? A proxy is essentially like a special tunnel made, right? That allows certain traffic to go through and certain traffic to be filtered out, right? So essentially the way I understand, and I honestly don't know how core in Selenium works or in WebDriver works, but my understanding in my head somewhere is that they basically create a tunnel, all right? And then the communication from your code, the one you wrote, through the tunnel, goes through the tunnel and then to the browser. All right, let's kind of say that. In order to create that tunnel, right, we're gonna call it a tunnel. In order to create that tunnel, we need the server. All right, and what the server does is it boots up a special mechanism which will create that tunnel, and it starts listening in a specific port. So it boots up, does its own thing, right, and occupies a certain port. All right, and the port is like a telephone line. So that's the tunnel. All right, so basically it picks up the phone on one line and says, if anything communicates to me through that tunnel, I'll answer and I'll do things. All right, make sense? And on the other side of that tunnel, I'm actually not sure what happens. Let's pretend that Gecko Driver sits there and tries to also listen on the phone. All right, but we don't know. We're gonna use kind of imagery here. All right, so that's what server is for. Server is the tunnel. So you need to boot up the server for that tunnel to exist. And in the olden days, a whole 5 or so years ago, we actually had to manually boot up the server. What does that mean? It means we would download Selenium standalone jar, like we just did right now. And in order to actually run our test, we would have to boot it up. We would have to say Java jar, Selenium server jar, pattern a whole bunch of functions, and it would actually start up. I'll show you what it looks like. It's actually pretty easy for me to do that, so let's do it. So, I just started Selenium server, all right? So basically, I have a special command. When I say Selenium 3, my computer knows to start up Selenium server. I do it a lot. All right, so see, it's telling you that it started up a whole bunch of stuff, and now it's listening on port 4444. All right, so 000 means it's local. It's local. It's locally listening on your computer on a port, telephone, on a port 4444. All right, so the telephone line. So your computer has 9,999 telephone lines. Let's put them this way. They're ports, right? So that they can communicate with each other. Processes can communicate with each other on. So far, so good? Every time a new process boots up, it takes up one more port. Okay? Okay? I'm not a networks person, so I'm totally probably like getting some details wrong, but so far so good, right? So it takes up a port, and then no other process can run on that port. That telephone line is busy. So for example, if I open another window and I try to start another Selenium server, it's going to try to occupy the same port, and it's going to say, oh, something is already occupying my port. It's going to be mad. Make sense? All right, so why are we talking about all this? Now what happened is they bundled the client and the server together. Oh, by the way, when you have a server, you need a client to communicate to it. See how that works? So server would be booted separately, manually, just like I did. And then we would put client into our project, and the client would talk through the server, through the tunnel, to the browser. Make sense? Server is the tunnel. Yes? So far so good? But now we don't have to do that. More recently is more maybe 2.5, 3-ish years ago, they actually created processes in place that client can boot up the server on its own. And you actually will see it once the test runs. You will actually see in the console, in Eclipse, the server will quickly boot up. You will see all kinds of information, and then when your test finishes, it will shut down. So your client now takes care of that. You don't have to do it.
So both things work. So what is the difference between the both?
One is just more convenient than the other.
Is it?
So you can still technically boot up the server manually and have the client run. That's not a big deal. And point your client towards the server. But why, if you can just run?
No, what I'm asking, that language binding thing also works, and this standalone server thing also works.
Yeah.
So is there,
Why do they keep both around?
What is the difference between these two?
There's none. It's the same thing. It's just one can trigger the other one, or you can disable it and trigger it manually. There's no difference. You guys, why do they keep it around this way? Very simple scenario. I'm on a Mac, right? I'm Mac. I need to test my code on IE. Problem? Problem. So that means that I cannot communicate locally to my browser. I cannot have my client boot up server locally. So far so good? And communicate to IE. I need to have a server running on a remote machine and my client communicating to a remote server. Can my client start a server on a remote machine? No. It can connect through the network to a remote machine, right? And people are saying maybe, yes, if you're a networks person and you know about SSH and getting into the machine and you have the correct privileges, yes, but assume you don't. In order to connect to a remote machine, something has to already be up and listening, right? So you need to know the IP address of that machine, and something has to be listening. If you manually boot up the server, just like I did right now, you can connect from a remote machine to it on that phone line, knowing which port, knowing which IP address, knowing which process, all right? And then run on IE on the Windows, even though you're on the Mac. So you're on the Mac, clicking play, it connects to a remote, runs your test, brings back the results. Make sense? So it's still useful to have a client-server setup, just not for us today. Today we just use standalone server. It's going to boot up everything itself. It's going to tear down everything itself.
And just one more thing, and if you can stop me if you think it's outside, get it that drag and drop thing that you did.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same as add external jar? If I do add external jar?
Not really. If you add an external jar, it creates a link to it wherever it is. When you drag it, it actually makes a copy in your local project, which basically means you are not as likely to delete it from a wrong place and then have a broken link. Does that make sense? So, if, by the way, I don't know whose this is, but if this is here, you're fine. Okay, if this is here, right, and I'm saying, refer to that thing over there, right? If somebody comes around and takes it, I'm not as likely to find out. Or maybe he doesn't even know that I'm using it. So he will come and grab his phone and leave, and now my stuff is broken. But if I make a copy of it and I have my own, I don't have to worry about somebody discarding it, corrupting it, taking it. Yes?
Do you say that copying is more safer than doing an external jar?
Yes.
Because normally that's how they refer to as, like, to get your jars through external libraries, right?
Actually, in reality, you would use something like Maven. And Maven would actually download everything for you that you need and then refer to external resources that it won't download. But again, you have to keep in mind that it refers to external resources, but those external resources are always guaranteed to be there. All right? They might not be guaranteed to be there. Like it might always get a newer version for you, but it's not like they're just going to vanish. And even if they vanish, Maven guarantees that it will find where they are now, right? So like, essentially, they're still guaranteed. But if you have downloaded the resource right now into your downloads folder, right? And then without copying it into your project, you said add external jar, that jar is still in your downloads folder. How much you want to bet that in 3 weeks you might accidentally delete it because you forgot why you downloaded and what you're still using it for?
But what's the industry standards like? You still copy it, or as you say Maven, you'll use Maven?
It depends. If the jar is something that is internal, you might actually have it copy it or download from Git or using Jenkins or something, right? If it's something externally available by Maven, then yeah, you probably want to use something like Maven and save yourself time and you know, resources and stuff like that. And if we do have time in this class, we'll probably add a little Maven POM file in there and do some things like that.
But if I'm not going to move things around, then is it okay?
It's okay if you are also just like Maven are going to guarantee that you're not going to touch that file. Nothing's going to happen. It's completely.
Don't use so much memory, save memory, that kind of.
No, but I mean, you can delete it from downloads once you make a copy into your project. Nobody's forcing you to keep a copy.
So many projects, so.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
It's up
So
to
I
you.
can use that build path and configure build path.
Yeah. Whichever. Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, yes, so we're done with that. And then one more piece. We need one more piece. So now we downloaded Webdriver, right? We downloaded the jar, we put it in our project. What's the other little piece we need? Webdriver talks to the browser. Talks to a driver. What kind of driver? Do you remember? Webdriver talks to a Gecko driver, right? So we need to download Gecko driver. If you scroll a little bit more down, just a little bit. You remember where we downloaded the server from? Right here? Yes? Scroll. Mozilla Gecko driver. Okay, you found it? All right, so go ahead and click on it. And then, again, 15th version does not work with Firefox 53. There is a bug. Version 16 of Gecko driver is complete. They just haven't released it yet. So as soon as they release it, you'll be able to download it and upgrade to 53. Okay? But go ahead and download version .15 for now. If you are on a Windows, if you are on a Linux, if you're on a Mac, you don't want source. You don't need source. And you get to also put your, okay, I shouldn't skip a step. Once you download it, you will open up your zip. And inside your zip, you will have an executable. All right? So you download a zip, unzip. It's not going to be a zip. Some of you will have a tar, some of you will have a zip, some of you will have a package. Anyways, open it up. Inside you will have a Gecko driver. If you're on the Windows, you will have a Gecko driver.exe. If you're on a Linux or a Mac, you will just have a Gecko driver. Either way, that's an executable. You need to put it into your project. Just like you did with a jar file, put it into your project. If you just enter the following URL, you'll be able to download the template. I'm giving you specifically the URL to the file because I don't want to do the whole congestion issue, right, with loading the page and stuff. So if you just enter this specifically in, this contains a template.
So we can just only copy and paste.
Yeah, you can just download it and paste it over your login. I was gonna have you guys do this manually so we can talk through every single line of code, but we're kind of running short on time. So we'll discuss every single line of that template some other day. But for now, you just get to trust me on it. All right? So once you download it, it will look something like, I'll wait for you guys to write it down. So remember, again, everything from this class is inside this folder, right? You go there, everything is in there. That's today's folder. All the stuff is going to get dumped in there from today. Everything I do right now in my project will get zipped up and also put in there. So everything will be there. Okay, so once you download this file, it will look something like this. All right? Something like that. And you can see that mine has errors. You guys see how it's underlined in red? And I'll explain why in a second. But go ahead and download yours. It's up in there, nice and big. Let's quickly gloss over it. Again, errors are fine when you download it. Errors, yes, good. Everybody sees them. All right. So the very first thing we're going to do in this one is we're going to declare a public class. All right. We haven't talked about Java basics yet. There's another PowerPoint to talk about. We only talked about concepts. But I think everybody understands when something is public, it means it's reachable from anywhere. It's kind of like available for use. We do need this class to be public because JUnit needs to be able to interact with it. And JUnit is an external library. That means that we need it to be public so that JUnit has access, essentially permission to interact with it, right? All right, so we're going to create a public class. Again, the name of the file has to match exactly case for case, letter for letter, the name of the class. So that's not really up to us. Whatever we call the class, that's going to be the name of the file. The name of the class. After that, we will declare a couple of variables. Now, again, if you're not familiar with coding, variable is probably not a concept you're familiar with, but essentially a variable is a container. All right? Think of it as a container. Now, let's say that you have a whole bunch of opaque, opaque means non-see-through, right? So you can't see what's inside, opaque containers in your refrigerator. All right? How can you tell what's inside each one? So imagine your refrigerator and it's stuffed with containers. All the containers look exactly the same and you can't see what's inside.
A name?
You want to poke holes in it? He wants to poke holes in it. You put a name on it, right? You label it. That's exactly what we do. When we create a variable, we're essentially giving a name to a container. Make sense? Now, should I name my containers in the refrigerator A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H?
I mean, you could, but that's gonna be
I could, but is that going to be helpful?
No.
I probably shouldn't, right? I can, shouldn't. Same with programming. Remember, this is like real world. Remember? Just like real world. In real world, person is an object, stapler, right? We did that whole shebang in the beginning. Same thing. If you're not going to name opaque containers in your refrigerator A, B, C, D, E, you shouldn't do it in your code. All right? So if you're going to give a variable a name, call it something that actually tells a person what's going to be stored inside it. Make sense? For example, in this case, driver is the name of the variable. See how it's blue? That's how you can tell that it's the name of a variable. Now, this is not blue. This is underlined in red, and something is not happy. But you see how it's capitalized? What is capitalized in Java? Classes. Classes are capitalized. So what we know is that we know that this container called driver has something inside it that is of a specific type. Remember the whole fruit conversation and apples, oranges? So it has a WebDriver data inside, right? A WebDriver type of object inside. Make sense?
Is it interface?
Yes. So because we have multiple types of drivers, we have Firefox driver and Chrome driver and Opera driver and Safari driver, right? We want to have something that they have in common so we can store all of them into the same container. That make sense? That's where WebDriver and interfaces come into play. That's why we had that whole conversation about fruit earlier on. This is that situation. We're going to declare a container WebDriver, but inside it, we are going to store Firefox driver, because Firefox driver is a type of WebDriver. Make sense? Or we can delete this little bit and say Chrome driver, and it will still be stored inside a WebDriver container because it's also a type of WebDriver. Make sense? So does everybody understand what a variable is? Okay, so let's play around. Let's say I have a container to store numbers. I'm going to call it num, right? Now, before I can store something inside it, right, I need to declare it. In order to declare a container, I have to give it a name, but I also have to tell Java what will be inside. And remember I told you there's multiple different types of numbers? In our case, we're just going to use int. Int means a whole number. All right, that's what it means. Integer, a whole number. So we are declaring a container for an int. Int is what's going to go inside. The name is num. So far, so good? All right. Now it's declared. It's declared. Is there anything inside it? No, it's a clean container. Nothing inside it. But if I want to go into it and get something out or put something in, there it is. Right? But it's kind of hanging out. It's a clean container. Now, as soon as I do this, as soon as I say equals, right, I'm assigning something into it. It's assignment, right? So, 12. Now remember, I'm always putting semicolons because this is Java and Java loves semicolons, right? If in doubt, semicolon. All right, so here we go. Now what I did is I declared, right, and I initialized. Initialized sounds very much like instantialized, right? Right? But one is from instance and one is initial value, right? So initialized it. I gave it its initial value. So far, so good? I didn't have to do it in one line. I didn't have to do it in one line. I could have left it as declared and then initialized it on the next line.
What is the difference?
None. If you immediately know what's going to go inside it, do it in one line. If you know you need a container, but the value is going to arrive much later, assign it much later. All right, so far so good. So here, this is what we're doing. We are declaring a container, right? And then as part of setup, remember setup? Before the test runs, not part of the test, before the test runs. We are going to create a Firefox driver object. You see how it says new? We are going to get a new object, and we're going to stick it inside our container. So far so good? Yeah, easy peasy. All right. And of course, semicolon. Semicolons. We like semicolons. Okay. Again, that was first. Well, okay, that was the second thing we needed, the browser. What was the first thing we needed?
URL.
The URL. We are going to declare a container for the URL. We are going to put the URL inside the container. Right? Second But well, that was the first thing. And the second, you know what I mean. That was one of those 3 things we needed. So we have our URL, we have our browser. Yes.
And we need to set public void in public class. Yes. Every time.
No, I'll talk about void in a second. Give me a moment. Actually, it's part of the basics. We will cover them.
But
Maybe today,
Public class
maybe not.
version is main general class. Yes.
All right, let me.
Okay,
Everybody
okay.
hold your thought. We're going to answer his question. All right? So we're going to come back to this in a second. Okay. In Java, in order to run an application, the keyword being here, application, we need to declare a main class. And inside that main class, there's going to be a main method. All right? That's how your Java runtime environment knows where to start. You might have a million different files, but it knows where to start, and then it knows what needs to call what, after which, blah, 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 right? So there's a starting point. However, by using JUnit, we are actually separating ourselves from that responsibility. JUnit already has a main declared somewhere. We don't need to declare it. JUnit is the application. What JUnit is a half-baked application. Think of it as a PlayStation, right? Like a PlayStation. PlayStation doesn't really do anything until you put games into it, right? Or maybe like one of those cartridge systems, like the older ones where you like had to plug something in and then pull it out. What we're plugging in is our tests. Without our tests, it just sits there and gathers dust. But as soon as a gets plugged in, it works. It becomes a thing that runs and plays games and it's fun, right? As soon as you pull out a test, sits there, gathers dust, right? So no, we do not need a main. That's JUnit. We do not need to. We do not. No, we don't need. JUnit has it. We didn't write it. They wrote it. We don't have to worry about it. But when we say run as JUnit, that's how we're telling Eclipse to go look inside JUnit for main, and then JUnit goes into our class and says, "Oh, a cartridge," and plays it for us. JUnit does more than just provides a main for us. It also does all the cleaning up and the setting up and the process allocation and the results. It displays the results for us, right? Does all those other things. But we don't have to worry about main in this case. So no main. Yes, I forgot what the original question
But
was.
URL.
No, but
But
your original question, did I answer it?
About public void in public
Oh yes,
class.
public void. Thank you. Yes. All right. So everybody understands how variables work, right?
Yes.
Name, type of stuff that goes inside. For a function, functions take things in, but they also may or may not spit stuff out, right? Because a function is a behavior. For example, you give me some yarn, I give you back a sweater, right? I hope. I wish I could. I don't have the patience. I actually can, but I don't have the patience. You give me, I don't know, a full plate, I give you back an empty plate, right? Do you see what I mean? So, or you give me a cookie and I don't give you anything back because I eat it. Right? Sounds good? So, those kind of situations. Sometimes you, or like there's a function called the parent and the teenager comes to the function parent and says, beep, and the function gives them money. The teenager doesn't put anything inside. It's very sad. All right, so we have a situation where a function doesn't take anything, but still gives back. We have a situation where a function takes and gives, and we have a situation where a function takes, doesn't give anything back. Me and the cookie, right? When a function doesn't give anything back, we specify that situation by saying void. That's all it means. Void means it's like a big black void. You put stuff in, nothing comes out. Everybody remembers that? All right. If the function does give something back, then we have to specify what. Why? Because whoever is going to catch that something needs to know what kind of container to create. It's just kind of common courtesy. Oh, you actually have to, but it's also a common courtesy. So if this function gave us back a sentence, we would have to put a string because that's how you specify a collection of letters in Java, string. If this function gave us back a decimal, we would have to say either a double or a float inside here, right? If it gave us back a whole number, we would say int. If it gave us back one letter, we would say Character. There you go. What about if it gave us back an element? Or an apple? Right. If it gave us back an element, we would say element. If it gave us back an apple, we would say an apple. What if it could give me an element or an apple? What do those things have in common? They're all objects. At the very, very top, everything is an object in Java. So if you're getting an elephant and a mothball, those things have nothing in common, but they're both objects. So you just put object. All else fails. Okay, moving back. Base URL is a string. It's a collection of letters. So that's why when we declared a container for it, we specified that it's going to contain a string. So far, so good? Okay. Yes. Gecko driver. Gecko driver. Right? When we say system.setProperty, what we're doing is we are overriding or adding to the current path. So the system has a path, right? That's how your system knows where to find your Java and where to find your, I don't know, what else? Okay, I have Python and all kinds of things in there, but your guys is, I don't know, applications and user folders and other things, important things, all right? So it needs to be able to find where Gecko driver is. It doesn't know that you put it inside the project, all right? You need to tell it, hey, it's inside the project. So this is what you could do. You're going to say system set property, WebDriver, Gecko driver, comma, and then the location of your Gecko driver. So if you were like me and you just dropped it into your project, you just leave it the way it is, all right? If you're not like me, if you left it in your downloads folder or created a folder under your project to put Gecko driver in or put it on the desktop, right? Then you have to specify path to Gecko driver. Make sense?
And you need to add exe in Windows.
If you're on the Windows, you have to put exe. Yes, thank you. Oh, more so. Thank you. That's on the Windows, you need to add exe. On a Mac, you actually need to make sure the permissions of your Gecko driver are set to execute, because unfortunately, I don't know why, when you download Gecko driver, it's read-only. Oh, yeah. Which is kind of bad, because it's supposed to be executable. I'll show you how to do that in a second, but for now, ta-da!
Could you repeat what was the first parameter? What is it? Like second is the path, and what is the first one? WebDriver.Gecko.driver.
Oh, this is the name? No. This is what's going to configure your path. This is the variable in your path that it's going to look for, and this is the location. So essentially, I know this is really weird, but you're essentially creating a variable inside the path that refers to this location. Kind of. That's the best I can explain. Here, I'll show you. Well, I don't have Windows. You know, on the Windows, when you go to environment variables, and if you guys ever done it, this is the shortcut from Java. Or on the Mac, if you do bash profile and you do all that stuff. By the way, did you figure it out, or do you still need help?
I did that part.
Okay.
Why? Still doesn't work.
For the Java? Okay, just remind me after class, okay? And then for on the Mac, to do bash profile, path equals blah, 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 this is again a shortcut. You don't need to modify your path. Okay? So far, so good? Okay. So this is what we need for setup. We need our URL, right? We need our browser. And then what else did we say we needed?
WebDriver.
And we need
driver.
And we need our WebDriver, right? So we got the Gecko driver. So last thing, this is why this thing is in the red, because we haven't specified where WebDriver is. Did we download it? We downloaded the Selenium standalone server, right? It's inside our project. But just like for Gecko driver, we needed to specify where it is. For our WebDriver, we also need to specify where it is to our project. And it's very easy to do. Some people already know how to do it. They've done it. That's why I've been answering questions about it. But if you go and you open your Package Explorer and you find your jar, go ahead and select your jar. So remember, we dropped it right in. What you're going to do is you're going to right-click on it. And you're going to say Build Path, Add to Build Path. All right? And then don't get scared. It's going to jump. So first it was hanging out in your project, and all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. But it's actually inside your reference libraries. Or it might not be gone, like this one's not gone, but. All right, so one more time. Select the jar, right? Select it, right click, build path, add to build path. Ruby? Woohoo, everybody! Did we get it? Everyone's good? All right, there's like at least 3 people nodding. We'll take that as a yes. All right, so add to build path. Now, what happens if, oops, I added the wrong thing, or oops, I need to upgrade to a new server? What do you do, right? Well, you open up your reference libraries. See, you open it up, reference libraries. You select the jar. Right click. What do you think you're going to select now? Build path, just like last time. But now you're going to choose remove from build path. And you will remove it.
What's migrate jar file? Says migrate jar file. Can I like move it somewhere? Or?
Maybe. I actually haven't tried that option, so. Now, what I'm actually going to do right now, and again, this is my personal preference, I'm going to create a lib folder and put my jars inside. You guys, shh. I'm going to create a lib folder and put my jar inside it. If you want to keep yours as, hanging out in your project like this on the top level, that's fine. All right? But like I said, I'm a neat freak. I like to put things inside folders. So, yes?
I have a question about add after, add test. These things, it's like a comment or what is it? No, in code, yes.
This?
No, add after, add before, and add test.
Oh, yes. We're going to talk about that. For now, just ignore it. I promise I'll explain everything, just not in one day.
Comments?
No, they're important. Don't touch them.
Some functional.
Yeah, they're important. Don't touch them.
Okay.
Oh, that's where I put my jar. Instead of leaving my jar hanging out in the project, I actually created lib and put the jar in my lib. But you need to do it before you add it to build path. All right? So remove it from build path, add it to lib, add it again. Or just leave it where it is and don't touch it and you're fine. Like I said, some people like to have jars just on top. My personal preference is to stick them in the folder. It is what it is. You can choose. You have freedom. Okay, it's not going to affect your code in any way, I promise.
It just helps to like better organize it.
Yeah, it's just that there's going to be so many files, I don't want it like all mixed up. My writing gets worse and worse the more I write. I'm sorry. It's just okay. Okay, so let's do this. Did you add your WebDriver to your build path?
Yes.
Did you notice magic happened and all the red marks went away?
Yes.
We completed 3 out of 3, right? So we specified where WebDriver is. We declared where the browser is and declared a Gecko driver for it, right? So we can communicate. And now we have our URL. We have everything we need, right? We're ready to use our WebDriver. Ready? So we are going to go to where it says test. Remember that whole fail business? We don't want it to fail anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to say driver. By the way, I really encourage you to be lazy. What does that mean? It means don't write out things if you can auto-complete them. How do you auto-complete? Write a few letters like I did right now and then press, if you're on the Mac, Control. Actually, on the Mac and the Windows, it's the same. Then press Control space. All right, Control space. And that will give you a list where you can select the thing you're typing. Now, for a 6-letter word like driver, you probably won't make a typo, right? But if you are going to write something longer like web elements or expected conditions or WebDriver wait or a JavaScript executor, right? Something long, you will probably make a typo. You'll forget a little S somewhere or capitalization somewhere or a little vowel somewhere. So just autocomplete. That will save you hours of debugging later. All right? Deal? So in this case, Control space and select driver. And then you're going to say dot. As soon as you say dot, you will see everything that driver can do out of the box. Now there's a lot more that driver can do. This is just the basic stuff that we can do some tweaking for. So So out of the box though, just by having driver, just by doing this little bit right here, new Firefox driver, just by doing that little bit, you are able to open windows and close windows, get the page title, get window handles, I'll talk about what that means later, find elements, find one element. You are able to navigate, manage things, and quit a window. All right? So you're able to do some basic little things. Okay, you don't have to remember any of this. All you have to remember is dot. All right? So driver dot. Now, if you wrote driver dot and for some reason this thing is not popping open, what do you need to do? Control space. And it will pop open. Make sense? So, we have, by the way, anytime I say the word driver, you get to think the word browser. Right? So, let's assume that I have a browser now, right? Because as soon as we said this, as soon as we said new Firefox driver, right? We essentially created a browser window, right? Browser window. That's what we did. There's a browser window. What do we need to do next in order to actually do some testing? We're testing an application. What do we need to do?
Put URL.
We need to go to it. That's why we have the URL, right? We need to go to it. So, how do you go to a URL?
Get.
You get it, right? Now, it's the only one that actually makes no English sense because in real world you navigate to it, and there's actually a command called navigate. Don't be kind of, fooled. What you want to do is get. Why is it get? Because when you are executing API, remember API we talked about? It's actually, that's the name of the request. The name of the request is get. So in order to load a URL, what your browser does is it executes an API request, get, and gets the HTML. All right? That's the only one you really have to remember. So you're going to say driver.get. And then, as you can see, as soon as I said enter, it actually suggests for me what I can put inside. So what do you think I should put inside? Base URL. Now, this is very, very little bit we changed. But let's try to run it and see what happens, all right? This way we'll at least know if everything is good or if everything is all bad, all right? So I'm going to right click and say run as JUnit, just like we did before. Whoops. I know how to fix this, so don't worry. Did it work for anybody?
Yeah.
For some? Those it worked for, are you on the Windows?
Yes.
Yes. So, on the Mac people, they're like, oh, that's okay. Mine didn't work either. Remember what I told you earlier? Do you remember? For some reason on Mac, when we download Gecko driver, it is read-only. It's not executable. Well, the reason I'm actually having you do this is because if you look at your executable stack trace, kind of bad because you can't really see the whole thing. It says driver is not executable.
I have a different.
It's Mac things. Yes, it's Mac feature that you told her before.
Yes, it's a Mac thing. Yeah, I don't know why they're read-only, but it is.
Mine says the declared package template does not match the expected package.
Declared what?
Declared package template does not match the expected.
Yes, look at the top of your document. Is there red stuff?
On template.
At the very, very top of your code. Look there. Is there red?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
Was it supposed to be commented the first line?
It doesn't have to be commented. It's just that you downloaded my template that was inside a different folder.
Oh, okay.
That's all. So you can remove that part. Okay, so how do we fix it on the Mac, you guys? Here's what you do on the Mac. Let's see if we can do it the simple way.
comma, dot.
Okay, here's what you're gonna do. In Eclipse, if you're on a Mac, okay, time out. If you have the same issue I'm having on the Mac, you will right-click on Gecko Driver, and you will choose Show in Terminals. All right? Show in Terminals.
Ellie,
Yeah, you basically have to go to the location of your Gecko Driver through your terminal, however you want to do it. Here's an easy way, another easy way you can do it. If you open up your terminal and you just drag the location, so you drag your Gecko Driver, so, okay, here, for example. If I just drag it to my terminal, see? Did you see how I grabbed it and then dragging it into my terminal? See the mouse? When I drop it, its path is going to go into my terminal. Here, let's see this again. The magic of terminal.
From Finder, we can right click and open in the terminal.
All right, so again, terminal, right? You guys see it? Terminal? Everybody can see it? You have to have it in the forefront, and then you can grab Gecko Driver. Just don't click and drag, just drag it immediately. You know what I mean? Because if you just click on it, you know what I mean? You lose your window. So you just grab it and drag. Like, don't stop, don't think, do it fast. Drag it over and drop. And that will get the path to it. That way at least like it's easier for you to find it. And then what you can do is you can CD, or actually you don't even need to CD, never mind. Just go to the beginning and you can say chmod. Chmod.
Oh, change the...
Chmod. No. Chmod. Embrace it. Embrace it. Chmod.
If mine says that driver executable does not exist, and it's...
Did you download it?
I did.
Did you put it inside your
Let's solve it.
project?
The middle thing. EXE.
Ah, yes.
Where to put the exe?
If you're on the Windows, you need to put exe after your Gecko Driver. So in the code where it says Gecko Driver, put .exe. All right, you guys, great. Let's finish this. All right. So drag, get the path. Everybody got the path? Now you're gonna say, go to the very beginning of the line and say chmod, and then you're gonna say plus x, plus x. All right. Chmod plus x, and then space, enter. Get everybody chmod? So chmod stands for change mode. It's just easier to remember chmod because it's a funny word. Now the way it works is if you want to add executable permission, it's X, read is R, write is W. All right? I'll talk more about the whole chmod business next class because we're kind of out of time, but it's probably something you should know if you're ever going to be working on some kind of Linux, Unix, Mac environment. Okay, now if you run again, it should work beautifully. Should is the theory here. See, it opened up and it loaded the web page. Ta-da-da! And when you click on your browser and you look at the test, it's green. Do you see any problems? What's the problem? No, assuming with my code. I know you guys have problems, but is there any problems with my code? Really? Let's try this again. Let's try this again. Let's try it one more time. What if I keep doing it? Is there a problem?
You need to close.
I'm not closing my windows. So the final touch on the cake today, I was hoping we can do more, but I kind of overestimated our speed. The last thing to do today is to find that tear down function. You see where it says a comment? And to clean up. How do we clean up? Again, if in doubt, what are you going to say? Driver dot, right? Driver dot. So you're going to say driver dot. And then go ahead and scroll through all the options and find the one that you think should work.
Quit.
There's close and then there's quit. Now, On the Mac especially, it is possible for me to close all the windows, but still to have my Firefox process running, all right? On the Windows, they're more coupled together, but on a Mac, it's very visible. So we actually don't want to just close the windows. We want to quit. We want to kill the session, all
But
right?
close, it's maybe close the tab.
Yes, close will close a tab or one window if there's multiple. But if you want to close everything and kill the process, then you want to do quit. All right, let's try to run this and see if it cleans up. Let me just clean up the ones that we had remaining. By the way, if you ever have a situation where it just opens up a whole bunch of stuff and doesn't close, you can always just go into your processes view, you know, like on the Windows it's Control Alt
Task Manager.
Delete, or on the Mac it's yes, it's Activity Monitor actually, and you can just search for Firefox and kill it.
Do we need to add some wait function, for example, timeout? Do we need to add some waiting function?
For
open and wait and close.
no, it will all be taken care of. All right, so if I run this again, let's watch it. It's not too exciting, I'm sorry, but it opens it up, it closes it down. All right? So,
Ellie, how do you get to Task Manager in Mac?
in Mac there's no Task Manager, it is Activity Monitor.
How do you
You can search for it, Activity Monitor.
Mine is not running.
Huh?
Not running.
I'm gonna help everybody who has issues. So, essentially there's really no homework. Your homework is just to get this stuff working on your computer. If I can't help you today, you will have to go home and Google. Uncle Google is your friend. If there's nothing else that you learned from me, learn how to Google. Honestly, you guys, I've gone into interviews where they asked me a question and I literally told them I have no idea, but I know how to Google, and they hired me. So I think if you can have humor and tell them that you know how to use a search and you're confident, that's good enough. So learn to Google. If I can't help you right now, go home, try to solve your own problem. If you still can't solve it, email me again, and I'll try to Google with you, and I'll try to solve it, all right? If you have a code issue, again, attach the file. If you think it's your project, zip up your whole project and send it to me. My email, you guys remember my email? So get it working. I'm gonna be back in 2 weeks. 2, no class next week. 2 weeks, yes?